session. So we started discussing about the data model topic. Okay, so as part of that one, so let's go to MDG IMG. Yesterday we discussed we wanted to create a one new custom data model. Okay, so now for that one, so ours is a custom data model. So we need to create a new data model in MDG IMG under data model section. Okay, so this is a brand new system where you will have the standard data models, material master, business partner, and finance objects. OG is a data model for finance objects. BP is data model for business partner, customer, vendor, and then MM is the data model for finance material master object. Okay, so similarly our idea is that we wanted to create a brand new data model. So that's where let's take one quick scenario. Okay, so the scenario is like I wanted to have a kind of create a product master. So let's say for example this is my product master. Okay, and at the product master level I'll have some attributes, that is a product number, then I'll have product type, and product group, okay. So some of the, I mean it's a similar to your material master only. I'm having some industry. So these are the attributes when you are creating a product master. So these are the this defines the type of your product. So we are maintaining these attributes, okay, which is the basic attributes for any product master. Now once after this, idea is that I wanted to extend this particular product, this to be made available in multiple plants, like so I'll have something kind of plant, okay, and at plant level I'll have some attributes. Let's say, for example, those attributes are like ABC indicator, some attributes. Okay, and I'll have something like plant status, some other attributes. Okay, so now these attributes, the attributes that we have over here. So these are the attributes that are existing at the product level, which is common across all the plants. And it very specific to plant combination, this product and plant combination, very specific to that one. We'll have some more attributes. These are the attributes. Likewise, I can extend this particular product to n number of plants. Okay, so it's our n number of plants I can extend this particular product, similar to your material master concept only. Okay, so this is what our idea, where we wanted to represent this particular scenario in a data model. Okay, so you can assume that this particular product master, the corresponding ECC is, let's say for example, equivalent to your MARA table, and this is equivalent to your MARC table. Okay, so these are the attributes at MARA and these are the attributes at plant level. Similarly, you can have one more child like sales and valuation. Likewise, you can keep on enhancing this data model. So let's go with a simple data model with a product master and a plant, one parent and one child. Okay, so for this one, we will be representing this entire, let's create one data model called YP. YP is a data model name. Okay, so let's create one data model YP. Okay, so here always, as I said yesterday, so the custom data model starts with Y or Z. Okay, so let's click on new. YP is my data model name. Okay, and the description, product master. Okay, and active area, as we discussed, if it is a reuse mode, then we need to define that access class and that assign some text identifier and assign that identifier over here as an active area. Okay, so for now we will go with so I gave that data model name and the data model the description. And active area is nothing but either this decides whether you want to go with the reuse mode or flex mode. So for now, let's go with the flex mode, because we no need to create access class and all that stuff if you're going with the flex mode. So that's why either you can leave it blank or you can just simply assign the MDG as a this one. So which defines this data model as a flex data model. Okay. Now, after that, if at all you wanted to have some prefix, we also need to store all the changes, that developments that we are doing under a particular package. So for that one, let's create one package now. Okay. So for that one, to create a package, SEIT. Okay. So select the package. I'll create a package ZMDG, ZMDG underscore demo. Okay, so I just created one package, created transport. So I'll just give a description, YP data model. Okay, I just created this particular package. Now what I'll do is I'll assign this particular package over here. So that what happens is when you activate this data model in the backend, the staging tables and all whatever the objects that are getting generated, so those will get stored into this package, so that you can actually move in your real time when you're working on the projects. This package, all the objects will be under this particular package. Okay, so we'll come back to this prefix little later. Okay, so and after that, as I said initially, the status will shown as none because we haven't activated, we just simply saved till now. Where is the save button? Select all. Save is here. So let's save this. Okay. Let's give a prefix as well, Z. Okay, so this prefix is it will use when you're generating any objects, it will add this as a prefix for all the generated objects. Okay, so I just provided a free prefix. Now we just created a data model. After that particular data model, we need to create a entities inside this particular, under this data model, we need to create the entities. Okay, so in our case, if you look at this example, basically we need two entities. This is one entity, this is one entity, and this is again another entity for us. So we need to create two entities. Okay, so now let's go back to entities under data model. Okay, here we need to create the entities over here. Okay, so let's click on new entry button. Okay, so this is the definition or the properties while creating entity you need to set. First, you need to give an entity type name. Okay, so I'll just say Y product, Y prod is my entity name. Okay, now as we discussed yesterday, so when you are creating an entity, first you need to define the entity type, whether it is a this is how I can auto hide. Okay, so we will get the codes. Let me look at that options. Accessibility not. Show keys within drop down. Okay, so let's activate this show keys. So when you activate this, what happens is here you can see these numbers, the codes as well. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now when you are creating an entity type, so you need to choose between these types, whether it is an SU type 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. So we discussed yesterday about SU type 1 and SU type 4. Okay, so in this scenario, in our example, always in our scenario, always the product master will become our parent entity, because that is the root entity for us. And after that, whatever you have this plant entity, it will become a child, because first I'll create a product master, and once the product master got created, I'll maintain some data at the product master level, and I can extend that product master, that particular product, to multiple plant locations, multiple plants. Okay, so without this particular one, without the product master entity, I cannot actually create the plant related information. First, your parent should exist, and then we can actually create the childs. So that's why always we define this particular product master in our scenario. This will become the your root entity, or the parent entity. Okay, so always this will become your SU type 1, storage use type 1, and this will become your storage use type 4, 1 and 4. Okay, so now we are creating this particular product master entity. Okay, so I'll select the storage use type 1. Okay, now after that, let's talk this additions validity later, because it is not applicable. Only for finance we will use this, but otherwise we don't use this one. Instead, I just gave some little introduction about that entity addition, and the finance, how it is different from the regular data models. So we will discuss in detail when we are talking about the finance data model. Except finance data model, we don't use this at all anywhere in the standard or custom objects. Okay, so let's put this aside. We'll come back to this later. Now, after storage use type, once you decide the storage use type, here what we are saying, we are using the storage use type 1. That means for this particular storage use type, system will generate the database tables. Okay, and you need to mention that here it is asking for the data element. Okay, so what does this mean is, usually what happens is, whenever you are creating a type 1 entity, that is nothing but your product entity in this example. Okay, so our scenario is product y product. Y product is my type 1 entity. Here I'll add the attributes as material type, then material group, then probably some material type, material group, industry sector, some attributes. Okay, now along with this one, we also need to mention the key attribute. Okay, so always for type 1, this entity type itself will become the key attribute. That means you don't add a specifically an attribute called a product or something like that, which is a key. So we don't need to add that one. By default, the behavior is this one itself will become a primary key in your table. That means when system generates a staging table for this particular entity, it will create like the fields in that table will be yprod, which is a key field, and then material type, then material group, and industry sector. Okay, so though we will, under the attributes, we will be adding non-key attributes, and plus additionally the entity itself will become a primary key in your generated table. So for these ones, we will mention the data elements at the attribute level, but for entity, for this particular type 1 entity, we need to mention the data element here itself. Here. Okay, so that means this is also will become one of the key attribute in the generated staging table. For that one, we need to mention the data element. So that's why it is you need to maintain the data element over here. So the data element is Matner. I'm just using the standard material master data element only. Let me open Mara table. So we will refer, for us, the reference table will be Mara. We just take some of the attributes from there. Okay, so this is what the data element I'm using. Okay, so that's why the data element is mandatory for type 1s. Why? Because this particular entity itself will become part of the primary key in the generated staging table. For the key field, always for the field at the table level, you need to mention the data element. That's why we are mentioning over here. Okay. Now, after this, forget about these two attributes. We will discuss these properties later. Okay. So these are not important attributes. Okay. And after that, the next important attribute is key assignment. Okay. So this key assignment, what does this key assignment means is basically, if you look at the UI application, let's say, for example, okay. So when we generate a when we develop a new application, okay, so you once we complete this data model, we'll develop a new application for this one. Okay, in the UI application you will have the product number. Okay, so where user has to input the product number, then you will have product group and product type, then industry sector. So these are the fields on your UI, on the UI form. Okay, now this particular product number, so this is a key field. Okay, now there are two cases possible. One scenario is internal keys, internal key, or else external key, external key, external key. Usually if you go to MM01 also, there are two ways. Like if I go to MM01, whenever you are creating any material master, so this particular material, this is what I'm talking actually. Okay, so for this particular material number, sometimes what happens is depends on the material type that you are choosing. Let's say, for example, I'm choosing FERT as a material type. Okay, so depends on the material type that you are choosing. What happens is, okay, let's select the industry sector also, mechanical. Okay, here what happens if I select this particular views, it is not asking to enter that material number because system will generate the number based here. It generated automatically this particular material number. For the FERT based on the material type, system automatically determined from the configuration that this is an internal number range. So it is it won't ask the user to maintain that material number. Instead of that one, system generates this particular material number. Sometimes for certain material types. Okay, so I don't know for which material type it is configured. Let's look at for certain materials. Okay, okay, not this. Let me take any other. For certain materials, what happens is it will expect user first. You need to enter the material number over here. Okay, so now that's where actually here we are talking about two keys. Either it can be internal or external. Okay, and even in case of internal also, there could be two scenarios. One is user, in case of internal, it will system will automatically propose some number. Okay, from the number range object, system will propose certain number. Okay, let's say it proposed the number as 2100. Now after this, the field after this, and it will be in read only mode. It will become read only. Once it assigns the material number, it will become read only. The same you have seen that when I enter the MM01 and when I go to the inside to that particular transaction, the material number that got generated, it freezed actually. That means the field become read only. Or else other option could be it will propose the number 2100, but it will be an editable mode. Okay, so I can replace this value with something else, ABC. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is system will propose an internal number, and after that internal once it proposes the internal number also, whether you wanted to allow the user to change the number or else you wanted to just freeze that field so that user cannot change that value, the proposed number. Similarly, in case of external number also, so once user enters the external number, user entered XYZ. Okay, now after that you wanted to freeze the UI, or else after once the user entered the external number, still you can actually allow the user to change this value later. Until you hit the submit button or save button, you can just simply save that one. Maybe initially I entered XYZ by mistake, but if you give an option that for the user to edit that value, what happens, you can replace XYZ with XYZ 1, 2, 3 or something like that. So the field won't get freeze. You will be still allowing the user to edit the data. So these are the 4 scenarios could be possible for your primary key, for your master data. Okay, so how your key behavior should look like, that is what you can define in this particular configuration, key assignment. Okay, now if you look at this the descriptions, key cannot be changed and no internal key assignment. First thing is, when there is no internal key assignment, that means it will be an external key, so user has to input the key. Okay, now key cannot be changed, that means user will input the key and after that the field will become read only on the UI. Okay, so that user cannot change the value, so only one time you can just enter that. After that you cannot, the field will become read only and you cannot change the value on the UI application. This is one scenario. Other scenario is internal key assignment only. That means system will propose some internal number and it automatically, the field on the UI, it will become read only. You cannot change that internal key assignment. This one, the third option will be key can be changed, no internal key. That means this is exactly opposite to the first one. In first and third cases, it's an external number only. But in the first case, once you enter the external number, you cannot change it. Whereas in third scenario, once you enter the external number, but still system, the UI, the field will be on the UI will be an editable mode. You cannot, you can still change the value until you hit the submit button. This one will be exactly opposite to your second option. Second option, internal key assignment only. Whereas fourth one also, it's an internal key assignment, but you can change that system proposal to your own external number. Okay, so now once you set one of these property, then what happens is on the UI, when you develop the UI application corresponding to this particular master data, this behavior will become automatically. So you don't need to do any coding for that one. Okay, so once you always, when you create an UI application, and that UI application we will link to this particular data model. When I link this UI application to this particular data model, what happens is, so this is my UI application. So in the backend, I already created one YP data model. Okay, so this UI will be linked to this particular data model. Then when this UI opens up, it will read all the attributes and everything from your data model and what are the configuration, key configuration and everything, and your UI automatically behaves accordingly when you are creating new master data or when you are changing the master data. Okay, so now you can correlate once we complete this data model, and when you go to when we develop the UI application, you can correlate this setting. So that time I'll again come back to this and I'll again retouch this particular point. For now, what I'm doing is I'm selecting this option. That means key cannot be changed, no internal key assignment. That means it has an external number that user has to enter, and once user enters on the UI the external number, that particular field will become read only. Okay, so I'll just we'll use this one and we'll see the behavior later. Okay, when we develop the UI application. After this, we'll come back to this language dependent text little later. Okay, so then another important part here is the description, just a description. Okay, I'll say that product basic attributes, basic data, product basic data. Okay, we'll discuss about these other attributes shortly. Okay, so at this point of time, what I explained is your entity type name and the storage type SU type 1 and the data element and the key behavior, and we just only discussed about we'll just enter the description of your entity, your description of this entity. That's it. This is the bare minimum you need to maintain when you are creating an entity. Other attributes we will discuss shortly. So once I create this particular entity, okay, so then let me just save. Okay, now we need to add the attributes as well, right? So if you go back to our this one, okay, so under the product entity, we need to add some attributes except the key, all non-key attributes. So for that one, you can go back to these attributes, click on new entry. Okay, so then you can maintain some attributes over here. So I'll just copy some of the attributes from Mara table only, so that we no need to create the data elements and everything, we'll reuse. So I'm just selecting MTART material type. and the data element also, and material type, the description of the field. So I added one attribute. These properties we will discuss again. So first I just wanted to activate the data model with the minimum information, and then we'll keep on enhancing those. We'll discuss those. Okay. So I'll just added material type, then industry sector, the data elements. So for all non-key attributes, the data elements I'm mentioning over here. For the key, this itself will become a key attribute. So that's why at the entity level itself, I maintained the data element for that one. Okay, after this MBRSH, so I'm just taking one more attribute, MATKL. Material group. Okay, and after that there is one more industry sector. Yeah, industry sector is there, material group 3. Yeah, that's it. Let's just added only these 3 attributes. Okay, so now save it. Okay, so we created now this particular type 1 entity with 3 attributes. Okay, now data model can exist with one SU type 1. SU type 4 childs are optional. It's not mandatory. I can have one data model with one type 1, but you cannot create a data model with only type 4. Okay, so no need here. So for that one, let's go back. This back button. Okay, so what we have done is till now we just created one data model, YP data model. Under that particular data model, we created one parent entity and we added some attributes. So when you have one under a particular data model, if you have one type 1, okay, so you can have n number of type 1s also. So there is no issue with this one. Let's say, for example, I can create one data model. The data model is, let's say, if you are taking this, what is that? Not article master, EAM data model. EAM data model. So that is U1 is the data model. Under this particular data model, you will have equipment as a type 1. This is your SU type 1. And you can also have functional location. Functional location is again another SU type 1. And you can also have, so for example, bomb, another type 1. Another type 1. Okay. So likewise, you can keep on adding. So this represents one master data. This represents another master data. This represents another master data. And you no need to define the relation between these two masters, because this is an independent master object. This is an independent master data. It's an independent master data. Okay. So, or else I can have only one data model with one SU type 1 entity. But you cannot have, let's say, for example, some entity name, entity SU type 4 entity, SU type 4 entity itself, only SU type 4 entity. When you try to activate this data model, you will get an error message saying that SU type 1 is missing, because the child cannot exist. It always have dependency with your parent. So that's why you can, when you are creating SU type 4, you have to have mandatorily SU type 1. Okay. So under SU type 1, you can create another SU type 4. So let's say, for example, YP is the data model. You can have SU type 1, which we just now created. Under SU type 1, you can create another SU type 4. And under this SU type 4, you can create again another SU type 4. It's a simple hierarchy, parent and child hierarchy. Okay, so currently we have just done this one. This is a valid case for us. And we will activate this data model. When I activate this data model, system will generate the staging table for this particular entity. And after that, we will enhance the same data model by adding one more type 4. And again, we'll activate YP data model. That time system will generate one more staging table for your type 4. Okay, so now let's activate the data model, because this is bare minimum I can have. Under a data model I can have at least minimum one type 1. So we already created one type 1. So let's save this. Okay, now you can look at the status here. It is showing as none because it is a new data model we are creating. Select the data model. Okay, and you will have an option to activate the data model. Why it is not showing this? Yeah, so select your data model YP, and this is the activation button. Click on activate. At this time, what happens is in the backend, it will look at your data model definition. If it is in consistent state, that means all that once you develop the right, it will check for that whether it has the type 1 entity or not. If you have more one type 1 and one type 4, if there are any relationships are maintained or not, it will check for the consistency for this particular data model. And finally, in the backend, you can see in the down, in the status bar, it shows some progress thing, right? So it generates the database tables and all some required objects backend.
Akshay, after it is activated, can we check the staging tables in the backend?
Yes. So once this got activated successfully, we'll go to the staging tables and we'll look at how it look like that staging tables.
Okay.
Okay. So it asks for the transport. So we will do it in the development box, and we can move. Once you move this transport to the next your quality and production, you don't need to do all these activities. So just capture under your transport. So you'll get this warning message, business object type is not assigned. We will talk about what is this business object little later. So it is saying that you can see here there's something called business object type that is not yet assigned. So we will assign it later. We'll go step by step. Okay, so now this particular data model got activated. You can see the status now. It turned from none to same. That means it is an active version. There is an active version. There is no inactive version till now. Okay, so now this particular data model is ready with one entity type. Now what we will do is we'll just look at the staging table for this one. So to go to the staging table, to look at the staging tables, there are two options. One is you can go to SC38. Okay, and the program name is USMD underscore data underscore model. This is a program name. Okay, you can just simply run this particular program. USMD data model, run this particular program. It asks for the data model. Okay, so you'll get to this screen. There is a direct transaction code also there. Again, I forgot that. Let me just check. Yes, data model. MDG underscore data model, I believe. MDG underscore data underscore model. Yeah, so it's the same thing. The transaction code is MDG underscore data underscore model, where you'll come to this particular one. RS from SC38, the program name is USMD underscore data underscore model. That's it. Okay. Now, once you reach to this particular screen, you can select your data model. Our data model is YP. Okay, then execute. So here, this is your type 1 entity. You can see here, this is your type 1 entity, and the type is, it's a table. Okay, check table, and you can, this is your program name, physical name. You can see here, right? This is what the generated staging table for your type 1 entity. Okay, so now let's double click. It will take you to this the staging table. This is a staging table that got generated for your type 1 entity. Okay, now let's observe these particular attributes. You can see some of the attributes that I'm selecting over here. These attributes automatically added by the MDG framework while generating the staging table. Okay, so because when this particular object got created, changed by, created by, so this will added by always for your type ones, this particular attributes will get added, and your mandate is a field that will automatically get added to the generated staging table. And this one indicates that whether it's a record is active record or inactive record. That means what happens is, initially when you are creating any master data, okay, so when you are creating this is your MDG system. Okay, you have your MDG component, and this is your staging table. This is your staging table. Okay, so
Akshay,
this is my
nothing can
UI
be seen
application.
on the screen. It's white.
Is it?
Yes, now it's appearing slowly.
Okay.
Okay. Mhm.
So this is a UI application. So what happens? User will log into this particular UI application. He will enter the data, material type, material group, and industry sector, all this information. Once he hits the submit button, this record gets stored into your just a minute. I think this is, let me open okay, so initially when the user enters, submits the request, right? So the data gets stored into the staging table, that we call it as an inactive record. Okay, so to indicate whether it's an active record or inactive record, that the attribute that I showed, USMD underscore active, that tells you that whether it's an active record or inactive record. Okay, so it will have two values. This particular one, so this USMD active will have two attributes. Okay, one 0 and 1. Okay, 0 indicates always it's an inactive record. 1 indicates that it's an active record. If you look at the domain data, the values. Okay, so initially for the record that got inserted into the staging table, you will see the value as 0. That means it is inactive record, or else it is being processed in the change request. Someone is modifying this record. And once the final approval is done, then if it is a reuse mode, what happens? The record from the staging area will get deleted it. So there is no one indicator, you never see that in the staging table for the reuse mode master objects. Okay, because the data will be deleted from the staging table and it will insert into your active the actual ECC tables. But whereas in case of flex data model, what we are saying is the inactive record will turn into active record and it will store in the same staging table. So that's where you will see the same record, for the same record, 0 will be changing to 1. That indicates it's an active record in the staging table. Okay, but ultimately you can see here in my MDG system. So this is my MDG database, and this is the active record, active database. Okay, so user logged into MDG and he entered the data. Once he submits that request, the request gets stored into this particular staging table with indicator 0 in the staging table. Okay, now after that, once the final approver is approved, then what happens is, in case of reuse mode, that record will get deleted and it will insert to over here. So you never see 0 to 1 for the reuse mode records on the staging table. Okay, but if it is a flex data model, then initially the record will have 0 indicator, and after final approval or the record gets activated, the 0 will turn to 1, and thus you can see that record in the staging table. Okay, so that is how you can actually understand whether it is a active record or inactive record. Okay, in the staging tables. We will see once we develop the UI application, when we insert the record, you'll see that the value gets stored as a 0 initially. Okay, so that's Okay, so by default, system will add this particular USMD active attribute as well, though it is not part of your data model attributes, but still system will add this one. Okay, now other than this, whatever the data that okay, you can look at this one. So this is your type 1 entity. Our type 1 entity, as I said, the type 1 entity will become the key field in the generated staging table. Your name of the type 1 entity is yprod. Now, if you look at this naming convention, so always it will be /1md/ is the prefix that gets added for all the objects. Okay, this is a common one. After that, it will followed by your data model, followed by data model, and then here it is your entity name. And the data element that you maintained at the entity level, you can see that data element over here. For other attributes, the same concept, but it will be your data model followed by the attribute that you maintained it under this particular type 1 entity. Similarly, this is the attribute name that we maintained. This is the attribute name that we maintained. Okay, so if you look at the staging table, some of the attributes, you can find the attribute there from your entity. Additionally, system will add some other attributes as well. But this is your staging table, generated staging table. Okay, and again, you can actually take this particular table name, and in your programs you can fire some select statements also, then it will work fine. Okay, but usually we never ever in your programs never ever refer the staging table to read the data from the staging tables by directly referring your staging table name, because this is system generated one, and at any point of time when you're going for some upgrade activities or something, system can replace this name with something else. So then your programs will stop working if you're directly hard coded that table name, because usual as part of the requirement, some usually I have seen that people will directly query select star from this particular table name, but that is not at all recommended approach, and we are not supposed to do like that. Okay, so there are some different ways how we can actually this is especially for the ABAP programmers, okay, or MDG technical folks. There are certain ways how we can actually read the data from your staging tables. So though that is SAP provided certain APIs, we can call that read the data from using that particular API. So we don't really care about what is the staging table name in the backend. We always query using your entity name. In MDG, you will to that APIs, right? So you'll pass your data model and entity name. Then system, what it will do is based on the data model and entity name that you provided, and it will it will find the right staging table, and it will return you the result accordingly. That we will discuss it later. Okay, but this is how your staging table looks like. We created one type 1 entity, and we added some attributes, and we activated the data model. So system generated one staging table for us. In the same way, even this is required even when you are extending your data model. That time also we need all this whatever we are discussing, right? Though I'm explaining on the custom data model, when we go to that topic the use case where I wanted to enhance the material master data model, standard data model, to include my custom attributes, that time also we will be doing the same kind of thing. Instead of here adding this under the YP entity, YP data model, there I'll go to data model and I'll do that one. Okay, any questions so far? Is this clear?
Yes, Akshay, it's clear.
Yeah, I have one question.
Sure.
So MANDT client, so that automatically comes through?
Which it automatically gets added. Mandate, it automatically gets added.
Okay, so
Every
this
staging
is
table generated, this will get added automatically. Okay. Usually if you look at the standard Mara tables and those things also, right? So you will have this attribute, the client. Okay, so here also the same thing. It adds this attribute automatically.
Okay, so the client gets added, also the created on, created by, changed on, changed by.
Yes.
Active, inactive.
Yes.
and obsolete data record. Those all are get added automatically.
Yeah, these ones it will add automatically.
Okay.
The selected ones. Okay.
And the data element MATNR, that is going to be our key data element, right? Like,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
okay. So that's the one that we initiated everything with.
Yes. 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 That's true.
Okay. I just needed to put everything together.
No problem. Yeah. Okay. So
Thank you.
yeah. Let's go back now. We'll go back to that entity. Okay. Let's look at some other information at the type 1. Okay. So I'll go back to YP data model, then entity types. Okay. So this is my entity. Now, after this, you have something called language dependent texts. Okay. So that means this particular functionality, you can see here, when I select this language dependent text, these will become mandatory. I need to maintain. Okay. So what happens is, usually if you look at material master, for material master, SAP provided a way that where you can maintain the description, the material descriptions in multiple languages. Okay. And where that gets stored, okay, that gets stored into, there is a standard table called MAKT. So if you look at this particular, let me show you here on the UI. I'll go to I'll choose FERT. I'm creating a material in normal ECC transaction code only, not this MDG through MDG. So this functionality is already there in ECC. When you are creating a material, you need to maintain. So okay, test 1. I'm just giving the description. Now that you can maintain the descriptions in multiple languages. Okay. So if you go to additional information, so there is something called descriptions. You can see here language by default, whatever that I maintained over there, it took as a my logon language. When I log into this system, I logged in using this particular one, or the default language maintained at the user record. So by default from that it took this one. Now I wanted to maintain the description for this material in German language, DE. Okay, you can also maintain in some German language. So basically, SAP provides a flexibility that where you can maintain the descriptions in multiple languages, so that it depends on the logon language. You can see the material description at the top. Okay, so this kind of flexibility is there in normal by default in your MM01 transaction. Okay, so for any master data, you will have this kind of thing. Especially for material master, this information gets stored into the table called, on ECC side, the corresponding table is MAKT. Okay, MAKT is the table name. Okay, if you look at this one, material number, then the language key, then the material description. Okay, so this is your ECC table. Now on MDG side also, I wanted to have the similar kind of functionality where I wanted to maintain my material descriptions in multiple languages. That's where, if at all, for the custom object that you are going to build, whether if at all you wanted to give that flexibility to maintain multiple languages, then you need a staging table to store that multiple language descriptions also on MDG side. That's why when you select this particular checkbox and provide the field, the lens here, long text, medium text one. For long text, let me maintain this medium text. This is, I believe, 60. Yeah, 60. So short text, medium text, and long text, the length we need to maintain over here. So 20. What I have done, for the same entity type, I just added some more properties. I just set some more properties over here. Okay. Now again, save this particular entity. Okay. Now go back to the data model, because we modified after activating this particular data model, we modified again some more properties. So then if you go back to the data model at the top, okay, so that if you scroll right, you will see that different the status is. Originally it was same, because after activating this data model, now we did some changes, right? So this different indicates that there is an active version, and you also have an inactive version. Both are different. So that's why you can see that the status as different. Okay. Now let's activate this data model again. Okay, because we did some changes, so let's activate this data model. It's like when you are working on an ABAP program or anything, right? When you do some changes, every time you need to do that activation. So I'm activating this again. So this time what happens, the MDG framework, it will look at your data model again, and based on the changes, it will actually generate, if any new objects has to be created, the tables or anything, it will generate those objects as well.
So this change will get reflected in the staging tables, right?
Yeah, yes. That's what I just wanted to show. So that's why I'm just activating step by step, doing some changes and again activate, so that you will see the difference. Earlier you saw only one staging table, right? Which will have that your material related attributes. Now this got activated, the status shows it as same. Now let's go and look at the staging tables, staging area. So I'll go back here. You have one staging table. Now again, I'm executing with my data model. This time you see another staging table got created. That staging table type is text table. So the earlier only you have one staging table. Now the system generated another staging table for you. And this staging table got generated because we selected that option, that language text option. Okay, because even in you will have a Mara table separate, and you also have MAKT as the separate table on ECC side, which stores your only the material descriptions, nothing else. So here you can assume this is the staging table corresponding to your Mara, and the other one is the staging table corresponding to your MAKT table. Now let's look at MAKT, this staging table, language dependent text. What are the attributes it has? Okay, so the Lango as a your key, and your material number is another key, and you also have USMD active, and these are common anyway. It will get added for every generated staging table, and you have that the short text, medium text, and long text. So this staging table is exclusively used to store your multiple descriptions in descriptions in multiple languages for your master data.
Akshay, how many languages? What's the maximum amount of languages?
Whatever it supports on ECC side, right? It supports the same.
Okay.
It's the same data element we are using. Even if you look at your MAKT also, you have the same data element. It's the same field basically. So there, if it supports some 999, then here also it supports 999.
Sorry. So, sorry, I didn't understand. So, like English, German, all of those are supported.
Yeah.
How many languages? Like, is there any barrier that you know?
No, so this is basically the languages that you configure in your SAP system, right? If I go to this particular domain data, so there will be a T table in the backend. So if you maintain, let me show you here. Okay, so T002 is the standard table.
Okay.
for all the language keys, right? So
Okay.
how many values under this one, it supports all those things.
Okay, so it's configured in the backend. Okay, T002.
Yeah. So even the same table being used in your MAKT also, it's the same thing. Let me just show you that also. So number of entries are, you can see here, only 44 languages configured in this system. But basis will be configuring, if you need additional languages, basis will be configuring those things also. Okay, so that you can the same table is also referred in your MAKT on ECC side also, it refers the same table. Okay, if I go to MAKT, it's the same. Basically, the data element remains same. SPARS. So it also refers the same T002 table only. Okay, so
when we pick a language, it's let's say German language. Everything will change on the screen to German language.
no.
Domain,
Only the description. Only the description.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And if at all you wanted to have all the field labels also to be translated, then we need to maintain that translations. For the standard UI applications, right? For material master, business partner, customers, or even that article master and EAM. So they maintain the translations. So it is like on your UI application, you take every attribute that you are displaying on the UI application. For every attribute, we will do a translation. There is a separate process is there. So that there is a T code, SOBXT. There is some object you need to create. Once you maintain the translation, and then all your other other attributes, also the field labels, everything will start showing into that particular logon language, German or those things. For the standard objects, it is there. But for the custom objects, I don't think anyone will do that much to that extent.
Okay. Yeah. Thank
but
you.
the flexibility is there. I mean,
flexibility is there.
Yeah. For custom objects also, the flexibility is there. Okay. So that is one additional setting. Okay. Now, after this, again, go back to entity types. Okay. So this part we discussed. And similarly, you have something called attachments. So usually what happens is in MDG world, when you are creating any master data or when you are changing any master data, I told you that system will generate one change request number. Okay. So that means along with that one, the change request number will contain the current, okay, why you are creating this request. It has certain some attributes, the reason for this particular master data, and then there is some notes section will be there. I'll show you in the next week when we get into that. When I open that UI application, then I'll spend some time on that one. Okay, but just for your imagination, at this point of time, if you look at this, okay, so this is your UI application on MDG. Assume that. Okay, so your UI will be divided into multiple sections. Okay, so this particular section will contain your Mara information. Okay, and this section will contain your plant related information, and this section will contain your skills related. So likewise, all the, for every entity, you will have some section on the UI where user will maintain the data. Apart from that, there will be at the top one more section called CR section, change request related information. Here you will have your CR number, then the CR status, whether it is approved, rejected, pending with whom. Then you will also have the reasons why you are creating this master data. Some drop down fields will be there. So you'll have some attributes over here. Who created, created by, changed by, created on, changed on, that attributes that you saw in the staging table, right? For your type 1. So that information also will be shown over here. Along with that one, it's a tabular one. So you will have that notes section. When you click on this notes tab, you will have a text editor where you can maintain some notes. Okay, and so these notes will be basically helpful for the next approver, that if at all I wanted to put some notes to give some comments to the approver, or the approver is rejecting, you want to add some comments. So that notes will be, actually we will be using that notes section to pass some, to communicate between different user groups. Okay, so this particular entire section that I'm showing over here, this is just for your that particular CR only, for that particular master data create or for that particular master change or those things. Okay, now usually what happens is when you are creating or changing the master data, so the approver needs some supporting documents. Okay, so those supporting documents, how do you pass that supporting documents? There will be you can also have an attachment section on your UI where user can actually attach the documents, so that when this particular request goes to the next approver, he can go to that attachment section and he can actually look at those documents, supporting documents. So for that one, if at all you wanted to have that kind of attachments, because when you are storing something, when you're attaching the documents in the backend, you need a staging table to store that information. Like similarly, language dependent descriptions, how we are maintaining storing in a staging table, your attachment related information also we need to store. So that's where when you're selecting this checkbox, okay, I wanted to have an attachment functionality for my master data, okay, so that I can review these attachments. So in this case, what happens is you need to select this particular checkbox. When you select this checkbox and click on save again, okay, so again go back and activate your data model. So this time it will generate 2 more staging tables to store your document related information. Okay, select your data model, activate it again.
Actually, quick question.
Yep.
For the attachments, so let's say there's a workflow to change for the data model YP to make changes to the data master, we have to like go through an approval process, the requester, approver,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
for each of those sections, it'll automatically allow you to attach something, like a file.
At every
Each
step.
section.
At every step, let's say at the requester level, I'm attaching some documents. So
Okay.
when I submit this request, it goes to the approver one. And approver one level, he can see the attachments added by the previous person. And at the same time, I can also add few more attachments.
Okay.
And then again, when I submit this request, it goes to the next person. And the next person, he can see all the 2 users who actually added the attachments previously. And he can also add that one. So the point here is, you can look at this particular change request section is common across it. So this is a common one. At the requester level, you will see this same information. At approver level and at the entire life cycle, this is a common information that get displayed to all these parties who involved in the workflow process.
Okay, great.
Okay, so now we activated this particular data model. So this particular data model got activated. Now let's look at the staging tables again. So the transaction code is MDG underscore data underscore model. YP data model, execute. So there are 2 more staging tables got generated here. The first one is originally added. Text tables got added when you select that language dependent checkbox. And when you select the attachment checkbox, system added these 2 more attachments. Now you can see one table contains the name of that the document and the document type, so that basic information, what is the file size, the file type, so the document name, so the basic information, that link. Okay, so it will contain the basic information. Now the second staging table contains the content of your document in a raw format. So actual content gets stored into this particular one in a raw string format from the file. Okay, so that's how your attachments will be added over here. Now the point here is when you're working on a custom developments, like custom data models or anything, this is not actually required. It's a just for your knowledge purpose I'm showing this one, but this is not required. Why? Because this particular change request itself has that inbuilt attachment functionality. So it's a out of box SAP has provided in the later releases. So at the change request related section itself, you have that option, attachment option. So you no need to, again, this particular attachment is at your type 1 level. So whatever the attachments I'm adding, so that attachments the attachment of functionality enabled at my SU type 1 level. So I will have an option over here, attachments thing, attachments some section. But for this one, once you at the data model level, when you enable this one, then on the UI level also you need to bring this, but you need to do some developments to get this particular attachments, the browser part and everything on the UI. Okay, so SAP what it has done is later they also provided an attachment section at the change request level as well, attachment. So there is a section called attachment section at the change request. One section contains this is the basic data of your CR details. Another tab contains your notes where it will show you a text editor, user can maintain the text. And the third tab contains your attachment section where you can browse through that documents and store it in your at your CR level. So when something is available at the CR level, automatically it comes. So there is nothing, no need to do any development for us. So
Akshay, in that case, we can keep it unchecked, right? That check.
for us, this one. Sorry, yeah, we can keep it unchecked. The reason I just explained what happens when you select this checkbox. So I just wanted to explain that. That's why I just showed that one. But when you are working on any custom data models, don't use that attachment thing because when something is already available, we can just simply avoid that one. That is for the older versions. In the older MDG versions, that attachment section is not available at the change request level. That's why SAP added that one. But now that is not actually required for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, so I just activated it, that's fine, let it be there. Now after that, similar to that one, there is again another BC set. There is one more checkbox. I never use that BC set thing, this BC set. But the idea of behind this BC set is when you it will generate another staging table which will store your BC set information. So what is BC set means? Basically, if you anyone worked on that when you're doing some configurations, what we can do is we can capture all those changes under a particular BC set. And then when I import, when I move this BC set to some other system, and when I run this particular BC set there, all the configuration that I have done in the previous system automatically gets loaded over here. Okay, but I never see any right use case for this particular BC set thing, but it will generate from some staging table, one or two staging tables, which will store your BC set related information. But you can just ignore this 100%. You can ignore this one because in my last 7 to 8 years, I never use this particular concept BC set thing. Okay, now after this, there is something called search help. So this particular search help is on the UI applications. If at all you wanted to provide a search help for your material, for your, especially for your key attribute, then you can assign search help. So this search helps, it can be either standard search help, or else you can create your own search helps over under this one. If you go to SC11, where you can create your own search helps over here. So create your own search help, or else if it is a standard attribute, you can use the standard search help, and I can assign the standard search help over here. So that what happens when you develop a UI application, right? On the UI application for this particular material number field, you will get that F4 value, search help. So you can search that your materials using that particular search help. Okay, so and after this, there is again another this set. This is source field short text. Let me just check. I never use this. Quickly check this. What is the purpose? some text. Okay, so I'll just this one also actually I mean not at all used, but let me just look at this. This is a very low, not that much important for us, but I'll just check this. What is the purpose of these fields, and I'll come back. Okay, after search, the next important one is temporary keys. Okay, so what does this temporary key is basically? So there is a concept called temporary keys concept in MDG. Okay, so that means, let me show you here. This is your MDG component, and this is your ECC or S4 component. Okay, you have your actual database over here. I'm just taking example of Mara table. Corresponding to this one, you have a staging table here. Okay, so here this is your the staging table for your Mara. Okay, now what happens is on the UI application, okay, I wanted to create a material. So what happens, the user will log into the UI application, he will enter some material type and all that information, all that one. Okay, if it is an external material number range you are using, okay, so that means I'll enter the external material number as XYZ hyphen 001 is my material number. So this is the material number I'm referring across my landscape. So that means it will become an external material number for me. So even in the staging table also, system will generate the same. In the staging table, system will store that material number as XYZ hyphen 001. And after that, once the approval everything is done, this particular here also in your Mara table also, system will create a material using the same material number because it's an external number range. So there is no confusion here. But in the same case, let's say for example, if it is an internal number range, if it is an internal number range, so that means what happens usually in the internal number range, system will propose the material number. Okay, so that particular material number, what happens is initially there are two number ranges we are talking. In case of internal number especially, we are talking about two number ranges. One number range is MDG number range object, MDG number range object, number range, MDG number range. Other one is your ECC number range. Okay, so what happens is here, initially the user logged in, he selected the material type. So system will propose a number, internal number initially from this MDG number range object. So the MDG number range object is, let's say for example 100. It proposed the, if it is a create scenario, user is not entering that material number. System generates that material number for you when you go to the create screen by default. Okay, so that how that number comes is, that number comes from this MDG number range object, and it will show on the UI this particular number 100. After approval process, once all the approval is done, then the record will be moving from your staging area to active area, right? So this time what happens is, your on the ECC side, system will take that based on the material type, your SPRO configuration, it will generate a next number. Okay, so that it will replace 100 with, let's say here the number range configured as between 1000 to 2000. Then the material number will be here 1001. So that means this is the actual material number that gets created after all your workflow process. This we call it as a temporary number. Okay, to indicate whether it is a temporary number, we will MDG always adds a prefix called $. Okay, so when you go to MDG UI application, click on create material button, then what happens is, you will see against the material number, the value will be $ something. That means the reason there SAP is adding $ means, the reason is because it gives the indication that, okay, this particular number is an internal number or temporary number. The temporary number got generated from your MDG number range object. Okay, so to indicate that it's a temporary number, SAP adds this kind of some prefix. It can be dollar. By default, it adds the dollar. Okay. Now this particular number range, we call it as a temporary number range object. Temporary number range object. Okay. Now the question is, why you have two number range objects? Why can't we use the same ECC number range object here itself? And why can't I, by default, at the first cut itself, in MDG itself, why can't I generate this 1001 instead of 100? Okay, the reason is because in MDG, whatever the request, every request that gets created in MDG, maybe not necessarily it will go through and it will approve, the record will get approved, and you'll get that material, the material get created in your underlying ECC. Sometimes the approvers or requesters can reject that request. That means once they reject, it's a duplicate or something because of any reason. If they reject that one, we are unnecessarily consuming the number range from your ECC, because usually in any customer side, right, the number ranges we have to use very optimally. Okay, we cannot simply generate the number and consume that number. So maybe over a period after 4 years or 5 years, unnecessarily will be consuming all the numbers from this number range object. So that's why, just to, because in MDG layer, as long as I'm in MDG layer, my request is in MDG, it's not guaranteed that my request will get approved or not approved. That's why SAP come up with this temporary number range object concept, and only if the request get approved, that is the time it will actually consume the number range from the ECC side. Otherwise, if the request gets rejected, then we will be losing the number range, one number from your MDG number range object only, not from this one. That's the reason SAP come up with this kind of temporary number range object concept. And if at all you wanted to have that kind of temporary number range, you need to create the number range object and assign that object over here. Okay, so how to create your own temporary number range objects? I mean, your own number range objects. The transaction code is SNRO. So usually functionals do this one. In SNRO, you can create your own number range object. You define the range 1 to some 1000 or 2000, whatever, 9999, and assign that number range object over here. This is for your custom objects. Let's look at the standard objects also. For material master, I'll just take the material master example only. If you go to MDG IMG, general settings, data model, I'll go to data model. For material master, SAP maintain, create.
Even if we configure our own number range object and assign that in MDG, then what will happen? While it is still getting created, dollar will be assigned, or directly it will from our
dollar will be assigned. I'll come back to that configuration. There is a configuration. What is the prefix you wanted to add? You wanted, by default it adds dollar. If you don't want to, instead of dollar, you wanted to add hash or some other prefix, any special character, that is also possible.
A temporary number will be assigned, right?
Yes, temporary number will be assigned. So when you are, if it is a create scenario, what happens is, and if you maintain, so this is always will be used along with your key assignment. Okay, if you are assigning something temporary key here, means your key should be internal key here. Key assignment should be internal here. That means either second option or fourth option, right? Okay. I'll just show you the data model. If you go to data model, go to the parent entity. Material is the entity name here. Okay, and double click this particular entity. So this is your type 1 entity. They maintain the data element here the same way that we have done, and they use a key assignment, internal key assignment possible, and key can be changed. That means they use the fourth option. In our data model, we use the first option. SAP for material master, they use the fourth option. That means internal key assignment is possible, means system will propose some internal assignment. For that one, they use this temporary number. So this is a temporary number range object. So when you create a material using MDG UI, at the top, against the material number, it proposes some internal number, and that will be prefixed with $. Okay. Now, if you look at this number range object, when you are freshly configuring MDG material master in any client system, right, you need to do this SNRO configuration. Take this number range object, go to SNRO, okay, So this is the interval they maintained 1 to 9999, and the current running number is 130. It's a temporary number only. So when I create a material next time, it will show $131 against the material number field. We will see that demo in the next session. Okay, so if at all the same thing is applicable for custom object also. See, whatever is there in the standard for material master BP, for the custom object also we can implement the same functionality. If business says that for your custom object, no, it's always external numbers only, then you no need to do this configuration.
I have a quick question with this might be a little forward. Tell me if it's not a good question right now. If with the number range, when we're replicating it to the target system.
Yes.
Okay, with the, when we look at the reuse mode, this scenario would occur, right? The one that we have on the screen right now.
Yes.
It would be temporary in MDG, then it'll come to ECC where a new number range will be created, and then it will go out to a target system, correct? From ECC side.
That's true.
Now with the other scenario, it's going out from MDG side, so it's going to be replicated from MDG. So can you give both scenarios? Is there going to be any difference?
No, there's no difference. Always the concept remains same. Let's say, for example, I got your question, so let me draw that here.
Sure.
So this is your MDG system. Okay, MDG component and ECC. You have your database over here. In case of flex mode, you have a target system over here. Okay. Now, in case of flex mode, okay, so in flex mode also for your type 1, you will have that number range settings, whether it's internal or external. Assume that it's an internal. So system generates the material number, or probably the number from the temporary number range object, right? And from there, what happens is after activation time, at the time of activation, especially for the finance objects, what happens is it will look at your configuration under though the data is not being replicated to the underlying ECC thing, but still it will look at your SPRO configuration. Based on that one, it will generate that actual material the cost center or GL account number as per your SPRO configuration, and that will get updated in your staging table only. Okay. And from here, the data will be replicated to the target system. And when it is trying to post that record into the target system, again, it will look into the SPRO configuration here. So that's why, again, when you are replicating to one more target system, again, you will have SPRO configuration. So it will look into that, and accordingly, it will generate the target, the number in the target in that particular system. So in Flex also, basically, though you are not replicating the data to here, but you still have your SPRO configuration related to your cost center GL account, right? So accordingly, your internal number will be replaced with that the actual material number from this SPRO configuration. That means from that particular number range object.
Okay, and when we do the self-replication, it'll take the SPRO also, right? From
when you are replicating this data to here, right? So then what happens again? It will this time what happens is it will look at this particular SPRO configuration.
Again. Okay.
But still, I mean, the same number, it's already active record, right? For the active record, it won't again regenerate the number. It will just generate, create that, the record will get inserted with the same number, 1000 only. Because this is an active record only. The SPRO, it will look into the SPRO when you are converting inactive record to active record. But here, this record is already active record only. So just simply doing that copy from here to here.
Okay, and if it's a non-SPO target system, SAP target system?
Yeah, if it is a non-SPRO system, that is non-SAP system, so the same data gets with the 1000 only, it will just place that record over here.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Akshay. That was good.
Number ranges are very, very important when you are dealing, because if you are dealing with one system, that's fine. But here, right, in MDG is being a centralized master data system, and you will be replicating the master data to multiple systems, SAP and non-SAP systems. So we should be very carefully handle these number ranges. We will discuss some more details in data replication, DRF configuration, because in DRF we are talking exclusively replicating the data from one system to other system. That time again we'll come back to this number ranges and we'll discuss more concepts so at this topic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, great. Any questions from anyone? Okay. So if at all you wanted to use any number for the standard objects, already the temporary number range objects are already defined for material I just showed you, right? So similarly for BP and other things, those number ranges objects are already defined. We no need to create anything. Only thing is when you are implementing this particular MDG at any customer site, you need to configure that number range objects in every system. Okay, so it's a kind of cutover activity. Even in the production also, you need to configure that number ranges in the production system as well, one-time activity. Okay, after that, you have something called active area. So this particular active area concept, you will be finding it. We already saw this active area at the data model level. So in MDG, this is available at two places. One is at the when you are creating a data model. I created the data model called YP data model. Okay, so at YP data model also I have something called active area. Okay, similarly you created an entity YProd. At entity level also there is a field called active area field. Okay, so why there are two things are there? So the reason is usually if you don't maintain anything at entity level, this will take the precedence. That means the access class that is associated with this particular active area, let's say for example for material master, it will be MDG BS mat underscore access. This is the access class for material master class name. Okay, so if CL underscore, I think CL underscore something like this. Okay, so if you are not maintaining any active area at entity level, that means this will take the precedence. So I have few more couple of attributes, a couple of entities. I have Y plant, then I have Y sales. All these are the different entities. These are type 4, SU type 4, and this is again another SU type 4, multiple childs, and I'll have Y MVKE sales one. Okay, and this is also again another SU type 4. So now if I don't maintain any active area at any class entity level for all these three entities, okay, this will take as a precedence. Sorry, I mean the linkage is, these are the childs, right? So it will be like this. Okay, so this is SU type 1. This is my Y parent entity. These are the two childs. Okay, so if I don't maintain anything at entity level, that means the one which is maintained at the active data model level, that will take precedence. That means this particular access class is responsible for handling these three entity data.
And Akshay, you said that always there has to be at least one type 1 entity, correct?
Yes, there is one type 1 entity. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so these are the type 4s childs for this type 1 entity. Okay, now the thing is that here, let's say for example, I don't want it to, for this particular you take this sales one, this particular entity, I don't want it to use this access class. I wanted to handle it in a different class. That means you can also create one more ZCL some class over here, star, okay, and create your active area. Let's say for example, sales active area, and assign this sales active area over here. Then what happens is at the time of save or at the time of read or wherever that access class will get triggered, that time only for this particular entity, it won't call this one. Instead of that one, it will call this particular access class. So the save, read, all that will be taken care for this particular entity by this access class. For all the remaining ones, it will take care of this one. It's not.
Sorry, actually, just one question. Why would you need in this scenario that you put that's on the screen? When would you need a scenario like this?
Yeah. So I'm coming to that one only.
Okay.
what happens is, okay, see, it's not mandatory to use this one. Most of the time, if you take the material master, it will use the the access class that is available at the data model level only. Okay, even for business partner and everything, for all those things, all that material master BP system will use this particular access class only. Okay, that access class that is available at the data model level. Okay, but there is a scenario when I worked on this article master. Okay, so let me explain. So there is again another data model called AR is the data model article master, which represents the article master. Okay, so in this particular data model, SAP initially released the article master, the solution for something called RFM solution. RFM solution. That means it's a retail and fashion management solutions. So that means as part of this RFM solution, SAP added couple of entities over here, like entity 1, okay, and it added one more entity 2, and under this one it added some another entity type 4. There is one more, this is also again another type 1, something like, I mean, and another type 4. Okay, so it added basically bunch of entities which covers your RFM solution. Okay, now for this one, SAP created active area, and that active area is linked to some access class. So that CL underscore something access underscore RFM, something like that. Okay, so they created one access class. So this is fine. At the data model level, you have this active area and the class which takes care of all the entities under this one. Now later SAP actually extended the same article master solution to cover FMS also. This is an RFM solution, and there is another FMS solution. FMS means fashion management solutions. Okay, so this is especially used for apparel in case of apparels. Okay, so this can be used for any retail business, but SAP has come up with the FMS solution because on in IS retail space you have both components. IM component is there, FMS component also there in IM in IS retail solutions. So to represent both, what happened is SAP as part of FMS, so they added enhance the same article instead of creating a new data model altogether, because this is a add-on component on your RFM. So you need all these entities that are already existing. Additionally, there are some more additional entities you need it. So they added some more entities, E5, E6, and E7, some new entities as part of FMS solution. Now, for these particular entities, SAP, instead of touching this class to include the functionality for these entities, they come up with altogether a new class, new CL underscore access underscore FMS. Assume that this is the class name. So they come up with another access class. This particular access class takes care of only these entities. Okay, now why can't SAP included enhance the same class to add logic for this one? Because they wanted to separate the solutions. Some customers will be using only RFM. Okay, let's say if you take example of Walmart, they need RFM solution. If you are taking Nike or some other one, so they need FMS solutions. So in this case, they wanted to separate it out because the business functions are separate, and if you need to take, if at all you wanted to use FMS solution, you need to take a separate license. So that's why if someone who is taking only RFM solutions, then they don't wanted to touch this class with FMS related code. That's why they separated it out. And whenever if I'm taking an FMS solution, first I need to have RFM. On top of that one, I'll go with an FMS solution, so that my logic is also separated out. So for FMS, I will be using both the access classes. If I'm using only RFM, I'll be using only this access class. And for in a RFM solution, I don't find any coding related to the entities or the coding related to FMS thing. So both are two separate ones. This is the only
software. How will you use the RFM on that? Is, I mean, when you are only when you want to only deal with FMS, then how come you will be able to access the root one?
No, that is you cannot alone use FMS. FMS is always sits on top of RFM. So if someone wants to use FMS, first they should install all RFM related ones. On top of that one, you can enhance FMS. It's an add-on component. Okay, add-on component in the sense you cannot alone go with an FMS solution. You need to have RFM and FMS. That is fine. But people who only interested in RFM, then they can actually have their solution separated out. This is the only example where I can actually seen that the use of having that active areas at the entity level. But otherwise, you can actually do that at a data model level as well. One access class is sufficient, active area is sufficient to cover up all the entities. Only sometimes you wanted to handle for some certain entities, you wanted to handle the logic separately. You don't want it to mix with the one which is already existing at the data model level, then there is a flexibility, but that doesn't.
E5, E6, these entities will be able to access CL access RFM also, right? E5, E6.
Yes, actually, it can be accessed over here also, but the thing is that you don't find any coding. See what this access class will contain. It will read the entities and the staging area corresponding to these entities and all that stuff. I can see these entities here also, but you don't find any coding or any handling of these entities in this access class. Only you'll find that in this particular access class, the coding. Why? Because I wanted to separate it out my both that coding. So that's why actually you can see that both separate classes are used.
Okay, an access class, its main function is for replication purpose, correct?
It's not only replication purpose. Access class is basically, if you remember yesterday we discussed, it's access.
Sorry, I might have forgot. Can you remind me again?
Yeah, so I can, this is your MDG system and MDG component, your ECC component, your access class will be sitting somewhere over here.
That's right. Okay, you went over this. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so it covers your save part.
Yeah.
Covers your read part, and it covers your all validation, standard SPRO validations and derivations, everything will be covered. Okay, basically this is tightly integrated with your ECC SPRO configuration, even your authorization checks, everything.
Yes, you went over this. Okay, yeah, sorry, I wasn't recalling. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, I think that is the only scenario where I've seen you can use your own access class at entity level. If something I maintained over here, that means always for this particular entity, this active area gets triggered all the time. But otherwise, in normal day-to-day scenarios, we don't create our own active areas for entity level. Okay, you can just keep it. Even for material master BP also, you no need to create any active areas. Just the standard active area and the standard access class will be sufficient for us. And SAP has provided certain enhancement points for us to include all our for the save, read, and all to perform all those activities, CRUD operations for our custom entities. SAP has already provided a framework for us that we will be discussing during when we are talking about the data model extensions. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, Akshay.
Okay.
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
So now after this, the next one is deletion. So this entity data you wanted to allow to delete or not. So that's what I mean on the UI application, right? UI application, you will have add and delete options also. I can add some 10 plants, and after that, I wanted to delete some plants. So you'll see that delete operation, whether you are allowed to perform the delete operation or not on the UI, that will be decided at this level. Either you can say deletion allowed or deletion not allowed. If you said deletion not allowed, that means on the UI application, once you extend this material to a plant, there is no way that you can actually delete that plant on the UI application. Okay, but in general in ECC side, right, we don't actually delete any master data. At max, we set that deletion flag as for that master data, but we don't delete the master data. If at all you wanted to delete the master data, it will be like you need to archive the data. using archiving procedures. Okay, so this is especially from the UI point of view, whether you wanted to allow the users to delete or not. And this is the description of your the entity description. And this source and table, the source table and the source table field are basically as a informational thing only. It doesn't have any technical implications. It's a just informational thing. What does this means is, okay, so this is my entity. This is my material entity. Corresponding to this one, what is the target? I mean, on the ECC side, what is the table name? That's what you can actually just give. Let's say, for example, if I'm creating this entity and corresponding to this one, the target table on ECC side is Mara table, you can just mention over here. Okay, so it's just an informational kind of thing. We don't use this at all. Okay, and this one indicates that the X structures, usually if you remember in general for the ABAPers, right, when you are calling any BAPI, when you are creating or when you are changing some materials using BAPI, you will feel all the BAPI structures, and there will be something called X structures also will be there. So those X structure, the name of the X structure, you can also provide over here as an informational thing. Okay, so these three fields, actually you can just simply ignore it. It's an optional only for the informational one. But if at all you wanted to get into this one, maybe when we are discussing during the data model extensions for the standard material master extensions, that time we will come across this source table and X structures and all those things. I'll be showing that time. Then I can correlate these fields with that particular X structure and the source table and source fields. Okay, for now I can just simply ignore this for the custom data models. Okay, even for the standard data model also, it will be kind of optional. If you go to material master and look at any material related entity under data model, it's not maintained nowhere in BP or anything. SAP just provided as a informational thing for us. Okay, so with this one, so our type 1 entity is done. So we created one type 1, we added some attributes, and we generated the staging tables by activating the data model. Okay, so any questions till now?
So actually the deletion, when we delete, we don't necessarily delete the material, right? It gets archived and it has to go through certain checks.
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But
Basically, it is actually not meaningful for your type 1 entity.
Okay.
But when it comes to your type 4 entities, your plant entity and sales entity, wherever you have 1:n relation, okay, type 4s. So on the UI, right? So what happens is on the UI, I create a material. I'll enter the material basic data, that is my type 1 related information. For type 4, it will be a kind of tabular one, you will get it. Okay, so on that table, you will maintain like you will add the multiple plants. Okay, this will be extending to plant 1000, 1001, 1002, 1003. And after that, on the UI itself, okay, by mistake, you added this plant. Now you wanted to delete that from the UI.
Yeah.
So there I can select that, and I can, when you have this option, deletion allowed, then only for that particular type 4 entity on the UI, you will see the delete button enables. It gets enabled, and you can actually, using that, you can delete that.
Okay. And also, can you block also in MDG?
So that lock will be taken care by the MDG framework automatically. We no need to mention anywhere. Whenever you are trying to edit some object, whether it is a customer standard, so that lock will be automatically taken care.
Sorry, not lock, block the material.
Block, you are saying, right? Block.
Yeah. Yes, okay. Yes.
So block is like what happens is block is block or deletion thing, right? It's an additional attribute at material master level, or customer master or vendor master, like how you have your material type, material group. So block and deletion, the deletion, set deletion flag also kind of another normal attributes for you. And you need to have that particular attribute in your entity. And once you set that attribute, then actually accordingly on the ECC side, it will behave. Like
on your ECC side. Yeah, okay.
Once this, because on ECC side, what happens is when you are creating a sales order, when you enter a material, it will look at that whether this is a active material or inactive material. That means whether it's a deletions is set or deletion is not set. If deletion is set, you'll get an error message that, so those validations will be handled at your transactional level.
Transactional level. Okay. Yeah, no problem.
So yeah. So with this one, actually, we just finished the type 1 related one. So in the next session, I'll just stop for today here. In the next session, we will discuss about, we'll create a type 4. And for the type 4 also, it's a week, whatever I covered today. So that will be applicable for type 4. And there are small changes will be there. And then we'll be covering type 2 and type 3 also. These are the smaller ones. Once you know this type 1, then these are the smaller topics for us. Okay. So we will cover in that next session the remaining ones, and then that with that our data model will be completed.
Akshay, can we go over relationships also?
Yes. So when I actually, what happens is when I go to type 4, automatically system mandates that to maintain the relationship. So that time we will be covering that relationship. So relationship is not mandatory when you have only one type 1 or multiple type 1s. Relationship will come into picture when you are adding a child. Okay. So because we will be adding the child in the next session, type 4, that time your relationship will come into picture. So that time we will be discussing the relationships also.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll stop for today and we'll continue our discussion in the next week. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Akshay. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay.
Thank you so much.